I welcome you to today's episode of the Nigerian Bossman, and I must say that it's a pleasure to have you. And for those of you who have subscribed, I say thank you. And for those of you who are still contemplating as we are watching this, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel because it's part of what encourages it. And also, if you like the content, please press that like button. And that is what has helped the other videos that I've done for people to easily notice it. Today, I'm going to focus on the Chatham House, I'll say Chatham House episodes, because during this week that is just ending, we could see that there were several visits from Nigerian presidential candidates, the front runners, to the Chatham House in London, and also the INEC Chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, was also there. And in this particular episode, I'm focusing on Dr. or Professor Mahmoud Yakubu's visit to the Chatham House. First, I'll say that I was really very impressed, and I was very impressed because his presentation at the Chatham House was, I'll say, excellent. It ticked all the boxes in the sense that, one, his composure, his demeanor was wonderful. He was able to have good audience contact with the audience, and also his lecturing experience came out to play because he was able to engage the audience.
In approaching the subject matter assigned to me by Chatham House, my lecture is divided into three broad areas. The first one is lessons from the 2019 general election. The second, preparations for the 2023 general election, looking at early planning, the electoral legal framework, voter registration and permanent voters cards, election technology, expansion of voter access to polling units, inclusivity, recruitment and training of election staff, interagency collaboration and support, and finally, electoral operations and logistics.
Able to interact very well with them, and for me that was a plus. And during the presentation, he also had a look at the 2019 elections, and he outlined some of the lessons that were learned. And one of those was good preparation ahead of this present election we're having right now. He talked about having the technology ready ahead of time, and that for him was able to help in all the preparations they've had so far, because they learned from the different mistakes, the lapses that they had in the 2019 elections. And he talked about the magnitude of the forthcoming election.
Based on the figures we compiled from the websites of various electoral commissions and interior ministries in West Africa, Nigeria's current voter population is 16.7 million, higher than the 76.7 million registered voters in all the other countries put together, and there are 14 other countries in the sub-region. This means that a general election in Nigeria is like conducting elections in the whole of West Africa and beyond.
He talked about the fact that the Nigerian election has over 79 million registered voters, which is about 30 million over the whole ECOWAS states. If you put their registered voters population together, the Nigerian voters is well over what you have in the whole of the 14 states of ECOWAS. So I think that points to the magnitude of the responsibility that the INEC is going to face during these forthcoming elections, considering the fact that we've had quite a whole new population of young voters that have just registered recently. And I think in his presentation, he talked about that there are now 37 million voters that are between 18 to 34 years old, or 39.5% of the total registered voters. And then those who are 35 to 49 years old, they account for 35.7%, which is 33.4 million voters. And if we put these two together, they are responsible for, they account for 79.39% of the total voters, that is from age 18 to 49, and or 70.5 million. 70.5 million. That is huge. So if we put just this population together, it's at par or even more than what we have in the whole of the ECOWAS states, because the whole of the voters in Nigeria right now that have registered, they are over 90 million. And so I would say that INEC has his work cut for the organization. But considering what they have on their plate, I think that we as Nigerians should be there to help this organization, because it's not easy. If we look at having to conduct elections for this huge number of people. But of course, some people can say, oh, well, it's their responsibility. But we know that when we do our own jobs, if we have some people help us in some areas, it makes our job easier. And that is our own responsibility at this time as citizens of Nigeria, to also help facilitate the work that is ahead of the INEC, because it's a huge task. Take, for example, the issue of security, whether before, during, or after. We as citizens should be there to ensure that we play our own part, to ensure that, for example, the INEC staff and the ad hoc personnel, that they are well protected, because we know that there are those who want to frustrate this particular election, but we should be there to play our own role to ensure that everything go well. He also talked about the fact that Nigeria presently has the largest database of voters in Africa. I think that is wonderful. A lot of data can be drawn, or information can be drawn from this sort of database, and the Nigerian government can learn a lot, having to even draw statistics from this database. So I think that is a good resource for us as a nation, if adequately used. But also, we also know that the issue of data security is important. It's important to protect the information we have on this database so that it does not get to the wrong hands. He talked about the fact that he was open about the workers within INEC that were compromised by the corrupt politicians we have. We know that the Nigerian politicians, majority of them are corrupt. Corrupt in the sense that they will do anything to get into position, because they know that they are not in office, or they are not vying for office, largely because of the sense of patriotism, the sense of making Nigeria a better place for others. No, their drive rather is because of their stomach, because of their greed. So they are there to ensure that they loot as much as they can for themselves and those around them. So that's the drive for most of those who are running for political office in Nigeria. And so they will do anything. And there have been INEC officials who have been part of the mess we've seen in the instance, for example, like entering of underage voters, or putting names, fictitious names, and even having multiple registrations. And I think that has led to the cleanup of the register by the INEC. And he talked about the issue of the diaspora voters. And if we look at the issue of diaspora voters, if the Nigerians, if we as a nation know that Nigerians in diaspora contribute, for example, over $20 billion to our economy annually, but yet we are taking these people for granted, it is unfair. Because if a nation like Kenya can conduct elections involving diasporans in the elections, I think we as a nation should not have any excuse. So if we value what these people, what they are bringing in to our nation, then we should also be able to ensure that we give them that possibility to speak during the elections. And I think the reason why the politicians in Nigeria do not have been frustrating attempts of diasporans to vote is because of their own selfish interest, because they know that the Nigerians in diaspora, I'll say they have, well, they are more, in a way, I would say that they are more exposed. They've seen things from different directions, from different climes, and as such that they are better informed compared to many. I'm not saying that Nigerians within Nigeria, that they are ignorant. No, please, don't get me wrong on that point. What I'm trying to say is that the Nigerians in diaspora, they can see things which those at home might not necessarily see. And also, they know that because of this, their influence from abroad through their vote can swing to some extent or significantly influence the results at home. So that's why they are frustrated this. And I also want to commend the INEC, because there's been a lot of innovations, because the Professor Mahmoud Yakubu talked about the fact that the technology they are using right now, although they did not build the hardware, but in terms of the design of the hardware itself, the firmware or the software used for the machines they are using right now, they were developed by their in-house engineers. And I'll say I'm very proud. I'm very proud of the fact that our own people are the ones who developed the system, and they had input even in the hardware design. And so I'll say that is very, very commendable. I'm happy that we are engaging our own people in this area of technology, and INEC should continue on this path. And that is what we should do in other areas. We should engage our own people, because those from abroad are not superior in terms of foreigners being brought in as experts in different areas. We have people all around the world who have the capacity, who have the capability to be able to do the same thing or even better than what these so-called experts are brought in to do. So that is a plus for the INEC, and they should continue in their research and development. I think one thing I loved also about the presentation of Professor Mahmoud Yakubu is the fact that he was able to bring in some good sense of humor.
Innovations were all the work of INEC's own engineers in-house in the commission. The machines may have been fabricated outside the country, but the design of the machines were done by our own engineers in-house. In fact, one of them said that they are going to introduce a new biometric using body odor. I said, please, not yet. Let's make haste slowly. But when he explained it to me,
because in a situation like this, you need to have a sense of humor. He mentioned the fact that the engineers were also talking about having to develop a system where the voters' body odor can be used as a way of identification. And he basically just laughed about it, and I think the audience, it brought some good sense of humor. But that is part of what he thinks that, well, they might consider pursuing on the long run. In terms of being in Chatham House, I would say that some people have criticized it, that why couldn't this have been done at home? As long as we as a nation fail to develop our own organizations and structures, we will keep running abroad, which is embarrassing, because the flight ticket that was paid for Professor Mahmoud Yakubu and other INEC officials who accompanied him, put it in context, that could have been engaged or put into other use. The same thing with all the different presidential candidates who also went abroad. The retinue of aides and members of the parties that went with them. Just imagine the tickets they paid and what this could have been put into. So these are some of the things we should learn. We should remove nepotism, because it's part of the problem we're having is that the wrong or people who are not qualified, but because they come from a particular part of the nation, then these people are brought in at the detriment of those who were qualified but do not have the connection. And this is part of the reason why we see Peter Obi and Dati projecting themselves, because they are trying to bring a government that has a level playing ground for everybody, irrespective of where you come from. And that is the kind of country we should build. A nation where you are not thinking about having to meet somebody who knows somebody. No, you should be recruited based on your own personal qualification. You're based on the experiences you've had, not because you know somebody or because you come from a particular part of the country. And we see how this has decimated the development of our nation. So my people, in concluding this particular video, I want to say that Professor Mahmoud Yakubu did an excellent job. He represented us excellently, and he could not have done better than what he did. It shows that he's in control of the organization that is leading, and he's doing an excellent job. But as he said, there is a huge task ahead of them. It is not easy to conduct an election within a country. How much more conducting an election for about 90-something million people? So we as a nation, we need to stand with the INEC. We need to be with them. We need to ensure that everything go well on that day. That we on our own, we are orderly. We need to obey the rules that have been set, and also the security forces should be there, both the police, if possible, the other paramilitary groups, and even the army, if needed, should be there to provide the necessary security to ensure that this election goes on well. So, my people, remember, it is on the 25th of February. It's roughly, well, a month and some days from now. So please go and ensure you get your PVC. The collection date ends on the 29th of this month. Ensure you get your PVC because it is your civic duty as a citizen of a nation to cast your vote, to elect the leader to lead the nation. So you don't have any excuse. Go ahead. Stop complaining. If you know that Nigeria is bad, if you know that Nigeria is not convenient for you, it is time for you to change that narrative. Go and get your vote and ensure that you vote on election day so that we can have the type of leader that we deserve from Nigeria. May God bless you, and I look forward to seeing you in my next video.